Hey everyone, this is Michael Manley. Welcome to this week's episode of our Empowering Musicians podcast. And I am a musician, arts and labor advocate, writer, educator, and coach. And I'm here with my good friend Tracey Whitney, who is currently a labor leader in New Mexico, working with one of our locals in the American Federation of Musicians. And we're going to talk about how you got to this place and also some of the other work that you do. But your background is as a singer and a jazz artist.
Yeah.
So welcome, Tracey.
Thank you, Michael. Really good to be here. So my background, and it is 50 years in the making. I actually started performing as a child when I was 11 years old with my family. So my family was a singing group, and my mom was a singer. She toured with Johnny Otis and Solomon Burke, and my
Wow.
aunt was a singer, and she sang with Stevie Wonder. And she's that vocalist on As Around the Sun. She's the female vocal.
Oh,
Until the
wow.
rainbow burns and stars out in the sky. That's my aunt. And my uncle toured with Santana. I mean, so I have a really deep history. Look at you. Yeah, I have a really deep history. So that's the foundation of my music career. And I sang with my family for almost 20 years, and then I started out. Then I left the family and went solo, and then I got a call from Ray Charles. Come on the road.
Wow. The Ray Charles.
Yeah. I was like, who's this on my phone? Stop playing. The people calling me, Mr. Charles would like to see you tomorrow.
Wow.
Yeah. Where'd you get my name, and how did you? But same thing happened with do you know that rock band, heavy metal band Wasp? Did you know
I've,
Wasp?
I've heard of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I got a call from Blackie Lawless one day. And he's like, I need you to do a session for me. And I'm like, stop playing on my phone. Who is this? But what are the odds that I would know a heavy metal guy, and know who he
That's
was?
crazy.
But he was wonderful. So here
That's
I am.
great. So what was it like touring with Ray Charles and doing all? You were on the road quite a bit, I imagine.
Well, I did the Pepsi tour. Remember when he did the Pepsi? You got the right one, baby. Yeah, so I
Yeah.
did that tour, and I will say one tour was enough. And it would have really been wonderful to be covered by a union contract when I was on the road with Ray, because we had to pay for our own hotels. We didn't get per diem, and we
Wow.
got paid with money orders out of state. So you had to like hold on to your money because you never knew how long you were going to need it,
Hmm.
how long it's going to have to carry you. And Michael, I will tell you, a couple times I had a bag of Fritos and a Coke for the entire day,
Wow.
because I had to hold on to my money, right?
Wow.
Yay.
Yeah. And did that work pay pretty well or no? It doesn't sound like it did actually.
It should have, if you think about, this was like nearly 30 years ago.
Hmm.
I'm was making more then than I'm making at my job now. But when you consider all the expenses of it, so
Yeah.
when I got home, I was broke because every night I'm paying my own hotel. I'm paying, for everything. So it's like, oh my God, please let me get home so I can make minimum wage.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
will say this though, I would not trade that experience for anything in the world. My family was a singing group, and so I grew up singing harmony, but three-part harmony. When I sang with Ray, I was the fourth part in the four-part harmony, and it exploded my brain on, harmonically. It was like it took me a minute to lock in on that fourth because it was so close to the melody, right? And I was like, oh
Mhm.
God, my brain kept wanting me to go to the melody. But when it finally hit and clicked in my head, it never went away. So now I'll hear a song, and I'll hear five and six parts to a song now that is a three-part harmony, but my brain just starts stacking the harmonies on it as a result of that. So it was worth it, if for nothing else, that he really expanded harmony in my head.
Wow.
Thanks, Ray.
Yeah. I think you highlight something that's true about our industry, which is that there are these unsung heroes. There's been a couple documentaries made about backup musicians,
Yeah.
backup singers, and how these folks are really the people that create the sound in a lot of ways of these
Yeah.
artists,
Yeah.
and we get very little credit.
Mhm.
And even today, I mean, people turn on their TV and they don't realize that, like, if they're watching Dancing with the Stars or American Idol or The Voice, that there is a live band and that
Yeah.
they're part of the show and that they're doing all kinds of work behind the scenes,
Yeah.
doing arrangements. And especially if you think of a show like American Idol, where you've got, okay, next week we need 12 new arrangements, right? Like,
Right.
and
Right.
it's a crazy amount of work that goes on behind the scenes
Yeah.
with not the star, but the person right behind the star.
Yes. Yeah. And if you've got singers too doing background for them and stuff, it all, you're hearing the finished product, right?
Hmm.
So, an audience member isn't sitting there thinking, yeah, there's 15 guys in a pit and there's six background singers and they're thinking this entire conglomeration of all of these sounds they're attributing to that one person. They're not thinking like, "Oh, wow, did you hear what the drummer just did? Oh, wow, that saxophone solo was incredible. Oh, that girl sang that harmony was incredible right there." You don't give they don't give any credit to all of that. They're like, "Wow, that singer sounds amazing." Well, that
Right.
singer plus 30 other people, it took to
Yeah,
make that sound, right?
it's true. And I mean, I have a friend who sort of became a Michael Jackson expert, but from a musicological standpoint. It's very
Mhm.
fascinating. And she was like telling me how, like one of the songs that we identify with Michael Jackson, I don't know, like Billie Jean, pick a song. There might be like 100 hours of recording that was
Yeah.
done,
Yeah.
and the layering and the sophistication in terms of the sound design is really beyond what
Yeah.
most of us think of. We just hear the song and we think, oh, that just came out of nowhere, right?
Right. Well, my very dear friend John Barnes, he passed away in February. But he worked with Michael Jackson for years. So he was on, I think Michael had like the A team and the B team. So like the B team did all the fundamental part of it, right? Here's all the foundation of Billie Jean and all these other songs. And so they would put all that basic stuff together and then the other team would come in and do the final on it, right? But yeah, I mean, even for someone like Michael Jackson, it took an army to create that sound,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah. It's so true. And so you're in New Mexico now,
Yeah.
and so how do you get from singing with Ray Charles to New Mexico? What is that journey?
Right. So, I actually had it's really nuts how I ended up here because it was not a plan. I had a voice that woke me up at 4 o'clock in the morning and said, "You have to move to Albuquerque."
Wow.
And I sat up because I'm like, I really didn't hear that, right? And then it did it again, like, yeah, you did hear this. So yeah, you have to move to Albuquerque. It didn't say New Mexico or, anything like that. It literally said Albuquerque. And so for a year I tried to ignore it, but it was so loud in my head that a year later I came on vacation just to, get that monkey off my back and I get here and that next morning I come out of my hotel and that sky hit me like and I felt like I went into a tunnel and I said, "Oh my God, I'm home." And it took me 3 more years to get here, but it was not, um, and it's interesting because my brother Ray in Portland, he called me one time because everything was going really great. I got here and things just fell in my lap. Just I didn't have to do anything, which let me know that I was where I was supposed to be because there was no effort to being here. But my brother called and he's like, "Wow, Trace, your life is just, I'd become the president of the African American Performing Arts Center here. So I was president of the board and just, all this stuff was happening." And I said to my brother, I said, "Yeah, well, all I had to do was one thing." And my brother said, "Well, what was that?" what did you have to do? And I said, give up everything.
Yeah.
So the one thing I had to do was leave it all behind. My family, my job, my boyfriend who I'd been with for years. And he wouldn't come here, but I couldn't stay there. And so it was like, yeah, everything is falling in my lap, but I literally had to give up everything and just jump and just come
Yeah.
and
So
look at me. Yeah.
yeah.
So
So kind of surrendering to that
yeah,
message you were getting,
yeah,
and letting go of the control and the
right.
idea that yeah, that's fascinating. And it's very counterintuitive and it's very hard to do. Like have people say, wow, let me just let the universe tell me where I need to be.
Yeah.
You surrender to that.
Yeah.
That's
People
fascinating.
thought I was nuts. It's like, why would you go to Albuquerque? And I'm like, it's not my choice. It's bigger than me, and I've always been very intuitive. I come from a family of people with psychic tendencies, and so it's like, Michael, I gave in a long time ago listening to my brain. If it had to be if it had to be a competition of which part of me is going to win, is it going to be my intuition or will it be my brain? And I never give in to my brain. It always leads me wrong, but
That's
the tuition is never wrong.
that's profound. And my good friend and coach Martin, who was on the show a few weeks ago, would call that heart space versus your ego or your
Mm,
mind, right? So
yeah, yeah,
when we get out of our mind, like
yeah,
magical things can happen for us. And it's hard for people like me who are so intellectual and want to think everything through and have everything make sense. And
yeah,
but you realize it's like if you're trying and if you're efforting everything, you have to stop and say, what is my mind trying to do, and what does the universe
right,
really want me to do versus
yeah,
what am I trying to make happen versus let happen.
yeah.
That's really
Which is interesting because I'm really very logical.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, I'm
yeah,
very logical.
yeah.
But if it's going to be a contest between which of those parts of me is going to win, I know that my spirit never leads me wrong. My head, I can overthink a thing,
Yeah, absolutely.
and like, just give into it.
Absolutely, yeah. And had you ever been to Albuquerque before, or just
No,
never? You never been there?
no, no,
Yeah,
no. And my brain was going like, why would I go there? And it's like all of those the classic Bugs Bunny. I should have made a left at Albuquerque, right? That
yeah,
cartoon.
yeah. I was thinking of like
But
the old Partridge
yeah, I'm
Family
like,
song.
this is
Yeah,
like gonna be some dusty cowpoke town, is what I was thinking, right?
yeah,
Oh my God, I was so wrong. I drove here and got here at night, and over by Route 66, you're coming over this mountain, and then the town is laid out in front of you. And so I came and it was night and it was just lights and like a sea of lights, and I was like, oh, this is a real city.
yeah, yeah.
But before I'd gone there, I was like, why would I ever go there? And I love it here. I would not change that decision for anything for anything. I love this town of almost 1 million people, you
Wow.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like it's real.
yeah. I can relate. I remember the first time I went to Palm Desert and Palm Springs, California, and
Yeah.
I had this very strong connection to
Yeah.
the desert. And there's this, and I'd never seen one before, but there's this wind farm as you're driving
Oh, yeah.
into, and you
Uh-huh.
just see all these windmills. And I happened to have my radio on this was like, I don't know, 25, 30 years ago. And the John Rutter, Requiem was playing on my radio. And I just heard this like amazing music while I was like looking at these windmills. And
Wow.
I have this connection to the desert, and I never thought about it later in life, but I now live in Las Vegas. So I don't know if I have this
Yeah.
subconscious spiritual connection here, but
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. It's absolutely true. And when you got to Albuquerque,
Yeah.
you had told me you had a plan to open a jazz club. That was
That
your
was the goal. I
okay?
had wanted to have my own club probably since I was in my 20s was when it first occurred to me. And I literally had started writing, the plans because I'm very logical, so I'm like steps, to do this. And I was like, okay, when I get to New Mexico, I can finally open my jazz club. I've been here 11 years now, and that hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Still the plan.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's your journey been like in Albuquerque if it's not been the jazz club? What have you been doing there?
Yeah, so I got completely sidelined, and we'll go back to the intuitive side, right?
Yeah.
So I got here, and like my brother said, all these things just started landing in my lap. And I was probably in New Mexico maybe less than a year when I started going over to the union office, and no one was ever there. So I was like, but I kept going.
Hmm.
And I got there one day, and the president, my predecessor, was there, and I was like, "You look like you need some help." Where would that come from? Why would I even say that? Not. Can I have the papers to join the union? I was like, "You look like you need help," and she was like, "I do," and so I volunteered in my spare time, and a year after that, I was on the board, and so I was on the board for several years, and then she decided to step down and asked me if I would run, and I was like, no, I don't want to be the president of the union. I just want to be a union member, and I'm happy to be on the board. And but she kept insisting, and so then I did run and uncontested, and so I've now been the president for 5 years. Was not on my radar. But and then I also go back to the African American Performing Arts Center. They asked me to join the board. I'm like, how did you even know who I am? And where'd you get my phone number? It's bigger. Not
Yeah.
everybody gets this phone number. But and then when they asked me to run for president, I was like, no, I don't want to be the president. Everything I keep getting are things that I've pushed back on. I don't want that. Yeah, but you'd be great. Yeah, but I don't want it. Okay, I'll do it. So, in this time, I did that and became the president of the union. And then I was appointed by the governor to be a music commissioner for the state of New Mexico, and just things that just keep falling in my lap. So I found that instead of opportunities for myself being presented, right, me as an individual, um everything that came to me seemed to be about helping other people one way or the other. So like when I was at the Performing Arts Center, we launched a music series called APAC Presents Afrikirky, which is a wonderful Afrikirky, such a great name. So when I heard it, I trademarked it for the Performing Arts Center, because I'm like, somebody's going to hear this and they're going to love it, and so let me protect this name.
What is that name again? Say it again.
Afrikirky. So in
Okay.
Albuquerque, everything is blah 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 Kirky,
Right.
right? So
Okay. Now I get it.
if you can, if you can make the name have something to do with Kirky,
Love
so
it.
Afrikirky, so African Americans in Albuquerque.
Wow. Love it.
And the wonderful thing is, the guy that is the executive director of the Outpost Performance Space, his name is Tom Goralnik, and I think you probably know of his brother. He's a brother that's a very famous musician. Um, anyway, Tom, who is Jewish, is the one that came up with Afrikirky, and we love it. And I was like, sold. And the very next day, I trademarked that name
Love it. That's brilliant.
because I'm a logical girl. Like, somebody's
Yes.
gonna hear that. Let's protect this name. And so
Absolutely.
we started with Afrikirky, and then I came to the union, and of course, my job at the union is to protect other musicians. And so it was like everything I was doing and all the opportunities that were given to me were opportunities that actually meant I would be helping someone else. So it wasn't about me. Every time it wasn't, oh Tracy, we want to do this. It's, oh Tracy, this is something you can do that will help hundreds of other people.
Yeah, that is really important, and especially when we get into fear and scarcity, we think about ourselves only. It's like, I need this, I need this. But when
Yeah,
you let go and you start thinking about how can I serve the world,
yeah,
that everything opens up. It's amazing. And I had a similar journey where like I was I was not intending to be a labor leader at all. And I was lucky in that I worked on a very organized, internally organized, meaning the musicians were very had a lot of solidarity on an
yeah.
opera tour. And so at an early age, I saw this very sort of militant group of musicians that defended their contract, and we had a really strong union steward. And then I started doing Broadway tours, and everybody was like, well, we're too scared. We don't want to be the steward or whatever. And I was like, it was a contract that had very little job security, which is unusual for a union
Yeah.
contract. But the nature of tours, which were, you could be on the road for a year and then looking for your next job, just meant that there wasn't a lot of solidarity. And I said to myself, well, I'm not going to work on a job that doesn't have a union steward. Like,
Okay.
it wasn't
Okay.
that I wanted to be the union steward. It was like,
Right.
I'm not going to work on this job if nobody's going to be the steward. So I guess I'll be the
Right.
steward. And then we ended up with somebody getting fired, and it was an unfair labor practice, and I got involved in a grievance and arbitration, and I think this is true of so many different leaders. And we joke in organizing that if you're trying to find a leader among a group of workers, you ask the group who's the leader, and the people that raise their hands are not the leaders, right? because leaders are humble and they don't announce it, right? And it's
Right.
this
Yeah.
this is like a subject that's been explored a lot in like Good to Great and Simon Sinek's Leaders Eat Last. And the Good to Great book is fascinating if you've never read it. But his whole thing was, I came into looking at corporate leadership believing that the sort of, Lee Iacocca's and these people that the Jack Welches were the real leaders because they talked about themselves so much and they were such personalities. And the results were exactly the opposite. The best leaders were the people that were super humble, kind of shy. It was never about their own ego. It was always about, others. And I think that's kind of in a lot of ways the essence of labor representation and labor advocacy as well.
That's interesting that you say that because I've had a couple of people, I'll say negotiators, that had very different approaches to negotiating with management, right? And so you have like the loud ones and you have the quiet ones. And as the president of my local, I'm always involved in our negotiations. So just being there. And like you said, I have a different kind of approach to my relationship with management. Um, I don't just assume that it's going to be contentious, and I try to have individual relationships based on mutual respect, and actually have found that management outside of a negotiating room with me, I can actually have a pretty friendly relationship um, with them. And I've tried to, even during the off season, we'll just call and check in every now and then. Just, hey, how's it going? Just checking to see what's going on. You guys good over there? Just these random conversations to humanize both sides, right?
Yeah.
You're human and I'm a human, and I want to see you as that, and I want you to see me as that, so that when we come to the table, we can actually have a, hey, how's it going? How's the kids? Everybody's good before we get started, and it actually be a sincere exchange, right? And so then we can take the gloves off. But sitting down at the table, I want to have that relationship of, I know that you've got X amount of kids and I know your wife or whatever, and then let's have this really nice exchange, and then we'll get to the slog. But I think it's important. So it's I have a different approach, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important way to approach it. And I think what I've seen about the pandemic is with some of our larger negotiations, we can now have people in the room because it's all virtual.
Yeah.
And when you're in a traditional, live negotiation, you're not going to be, in our case, you're not going to be able to get, 15 people who play music for
Yeah.
talk shows, late night talk shows, to show up at an in-person meeting. And I think when employers see that, they can't help but hear the story, and it humanizes it. And also they can hear what it means in your life. And in the case of nonprofits, I think it's often a little bit less contentious because we're all kind of having the same mission. We always want, our musicians to be treated with respect, but it's not like you're fighting for, somebody to be able to make their house payment from Disney that makes billions of dollars a week, right? Where it's like the disparity is so great. With nonprofits, it's like, well, we honestly really don't have this much money this week, or we're doing our best, and we're all kind of on the same page that way. As far as
it can also be kind of brutal in there, and my mom is an interesting person. When my mom would get angry, the angrier she got, the softer she spoke.
Interesting.
Right? So my mom was not a screamer. So when my mom started talking softly, you'd be like, oh, mommy's mad, right? Because now my mom is whispering.
Yeah.
And so I'm like my mom kind of in that way, because I'm like, I'm really nice, but I do not play, right? So, when as the president of the local, I'll get calls, from my members, and when someone needs to be the bad guy, I'm happy to do that. My mom, she raised me fearless, and so I'm like, I don't care. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, you're having that problem, well then let me handle that for you, because I'm not afraid of, I look at it, I come in the room, we're all equals here.
Yeah.
We are all equals here. So you are no more important than I am. So boom, this is what I need too. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's an interesting combination of, hey, how are the kids? Yeah, right. This needs to happen. This needs to happen.
Yeah.
This needs to happen. And tell your wife hello.
Yeah, exactly.
So people are like, oh, not exactly sure how to handle that, but okay,
Yeah, that's important. And I think that's how I am. And I worked in the nonprofit management side of things very briefly. And what was a real turnoff for me was that there was this hyper sort of attention to hierarchy, and well, so and so has this much money and they gave so and so last year, so we have to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm just like, everything is the same. Like, I treat everybody equally, like you. It's like, I just, that doesn't mean anything to me. I'm sorry, it doesn't.
Nothing to me.
And I'm glad that they're supporting. I'm glad that we're all in this together. But like, I'm not going to treat people differently based on that kind of transactional sort of thing.
And you can't be held hostage to it.
Yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, it's really a lot of hostage taking there. But I think that for my life, if you would ask me 11 years ago, is this what I would be doing? I would have been absolutely not. We all make these plans for our lives, right? And this is my goal, and this is what I want to do, and I think a lot of times, especially for artists, because we can be, I don't want to say self-centered, but there is a self-centeredness about being an artist. Absolutely, right? And I think that you can get so caught up in yourself that you can miss a lot of opportunities. And then you see people who get old and angry, and this never happened for me, and that never happened for me. And, but what part are you getting in your own way? I found that when I first moved here, I was getting in my own way because I had my own goals. I had my plan for my life. This is what my life is going to be. And like, no, like I said, things kept coming, and I kept saying, no, I don't want that. And so, what if I had not given in to those things?
Yeah, I think that's
You know,
really profound, and you're talking about a purpose versus a goal. I talked about that a
yeah,
few weeks ago, but because we, as artists, and this is something that you have to understand, especially if you have a child or you yourself are pursuing an arts career. If you're pursuing law or veterinary science, you can say, "Oh, there's a little town in Montana that I want to live in. I'm going to go there. I'm going to open a veterinary practice. I can see where I'm going to be in 10 years." That's totally not the life of an artist at
at
all.
all, at
Um,
all,
but
at
but what
all.
we, yeah, at all. And what we can focus on is our purpose or our North Star. And if your purpose is I want to serve the world through music, then all of that other stuff doesn't matter. But if your purpose is like my purpose was my goal when I was in school. I wanted to be an orchestral French horn player. And then a left turn happened in my graduate
At
work.
Albuquerque.
Yeah, a left turn in Albuquerque. There we go. And for me, it was an injury and having to overcome that. And I had to realize, well, why am I doing this? And what if I can't do it anymore? And what does that
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Does it mean I'm not a musician if I can't play? And so I think
right,
the more balanced and kind of sane among us understand that what they're doing is larger than their instrument. And the ones that are
right,
crazy are the ones that are looking for all of their sort of self-esteem and reward in
yeah,
their instrument. And I think it's funny, like you can run into people who are nuclear scientists or they're doctors, and they might play on the weekends and have an incredibly satisfying musical life. And then you have other people who really want to be playing Brahms in the Chicago Symphony, and instead they're playing Phantom of the Opera and they hate their lives.
yeah,
But that's why it's so crucial, I think, to say, like, what is my purpose, and how do I let the universe take me with that
right,
purpose versus trying to focus on my goals.
yeah. Well, the universe has been very kind to me, and I think because I'm, I understand that I'm like, and so I do gig a lot. So the good thing is that I have never stopped gigging.
That's great.
So I get to have that fulfillment. I've got my own band. So I'm a leader of my little jazz band, and and we work all the time. So that's been wonderful. And then securing that fan base so that when I do, and I have decided that next year, hell or high water, I am going to open my club because why not? And
Yeah.
it has to be done, and I've already laid all this other stuff is running like a smooth engine, and there's no reason I can't do all of it until I can't do all of it. So,
Absolutely.
I teach at the New Mexico School for the Arts, and I'm teaching jazz vocals, and and I've got these wonderful students who are, like when I've been weary of where's the next generation of jazz vocals going to come from here in New Mexico, and I literally am now another thing. I never wanted to be a teacher.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, this thing just actually, I am a certified vocal instructor for children and adolescents. That's something I did a long time ago and did the
Wow.
course. Yeah. And then, I was like, well, when I'm old and I can't do anything else, I'll, I'll teach. Right.
Right.
But, but then it landed in my lap 2 years ago. And so, now
That's
I'm
fantastic.
teaching, little jazz singers. And once again, in my life, I've put in a position of other. musicians, and so now I'm helping to create these other musicians, and it just everything is music in my life.
Yeah, I think that's really an amazing story. And I think thinking, and it's very counterintuitive, it's not logical at all, right? But thinking about if we just think about what we're putting out in the world and how we're serving the world, actually we'll find out that everything is working out for us, you know?
Yeah.
And the more we show up for others, I think the more success we have, weirdly. And it's totally not logical
No.
at all.
But that's another thing. Like I said, when I became certified, I was thinking of it as a, later, how much later. I'm 62, but how much later in my life would I be where I need to do that? But as it happens, it came now. And I got to tell you, I had no idea how much I was gonna love teaching.
Wow.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love these kids. They love me. It's, you know, and it's about, teaching them jazz and taking them out of their comfort level or their comfort zone with doing theater or opera or, classical and all these things. And it's like, no, let go of that.
Yeah.
There aren't any rules here. If you decided you were going to sing a different note, that's absolutely fine. If you don't know where it is and you're like, okay, maybe this will work, try it. So now I'm this person that's telling them, try it. There's no rules here. You do, if it fits, it works.
Yeah.
Was it Miles Davis? John Coltrane? I'm trying to remember the story. No, Herbie Hancock was playing with Miles Davis, and he thought he was hitting bad notes. I know you know this story. And when it was over, he apologizes to Miles Davis, and Miles is like, "What are you talking about?" And he was like, "Well, I didn't play." Miles Davis is like, "Man, this is jazz."
Yeah.
He didn't hear any wrong notes because there weren't any wrong notes.
Right.
There were notes, but there weren't wrong notes. So I tell my kids, it's not wrong if you're, if it fits, it's not wrong. This isn't opera. You don't have to hit every single note the way it's written. Get in where you fit in.
Yeah, and that jazz mindset is so different than a classical mindset. Where for us, I guess it's a lot like if you think about cooking, it's like a chef versus a baker, right? Like a pastry chef, it's all about science and precision and the correct measurement. And a chef can just be like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to throw in some pepper here and do this," and it's much more improvisational and free. And we classical folks, and that's I think part of what leads to this mindset is like we think, okay, well I practiced this for 10 weeks and now I can play it perfectly, and why can't my life look like that? Well, it doesn't actually, No. So, well, it's been a pleasure talking with you, Tracey. And how do we find you and your band on social media to check you out?
You can go to babydollentertainment.com.
babydollentertainment.com. Is that the name of your band?
Even Tracey, well, my band is The Art of Jazz with Tracey Whitney.
The Art of Jazz.
So you can find, artofjazzband.com, and it takes you to Baby Doll. TraceyWhitney.com takes you to Baby Doll. All roads lead to Baby Doll.
Yes.
And the name of my club will be Baby Doll's House of Jazz and Blues.
Love it. All roads lead to Albuquerque and to Tracey Whitney. So
especially if you take a left.
Especially if you take a left. Well, thank you so much, Tracey. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
And I hope you connect with us on Empowering Musicians Facebook group. Look for this podcast on YouTube, and also it's on Spotify and soon to be Apple. So very happy to have you.
Congratulations, Michael.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Tracey. And I'm so pleased that you shared with us today, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye.